The online dialogue series of Refugee Poets was commissioned by the Special Initiative on Displacement SIF, program of the Civil Peace Service of GIZ. We appreciate the discussions and insights shared. The opinions expressed in these dialogue series are those of the speakers. They do not necessarily reflect the opinions or views of GIZ.
Where is home for you? Well, to belong is to be at home, while to be loved is to feel at home. I'm reading this from Try My Shoe, which is a publication of Refugee Poet. So welcome to this podcast, which is also part of Refugee Poets edition for 2021. And we are powered by GIZ and by Anika. And so what this podcast does, what we aim to do, is have conversations about refugees and the refugee space. So we'll talk about mental health, which is something we covered in our previous episode. You should totally watch that. We talk about health. We talk about education. So the aim of this is, one, to humanize refugees to people in the host communities. Number two, to make a conversation or start a conversation on refugees such that the term refugee is not such an alien word anymore, so that we can explore this topic more. And today we have a very interesting topic as well. And we will be doing this through a series. So this is the second episode in a series of podcasts. And with me, I have two amazing guests who are going to help us get into today's topic. So right before I introduce the topic, I would like to introduce my guests, who will tell us their names and tell us who they are and what they do, and then we get into the topic. Karibuni.
Thank you. So my name is Charity Wangui. I'm an advocate of the High Court of Kenya. I'm a Kenyan, but I've worked in the refugee space for a period of time, and I'm very happy to be here.
I am happy to have you.
Thank you.
Hi. My name is Genevieve Wanjeneza. I am a Rwandese. I have been living here in Kenya for the past 25 years. So partly I consider myself Kenyan. So currently I just graduated campus where I was pursuing a bachelor's degree in education and also a community leader. I work mostly under RAS, Refugee Affairs Secretariat, and other partners that partner with UNHCR to work with refugees. So basically working with community members who are refugees to find solutions to their issues and also to have a conversation with them and to know what they go through in their day-to-day activities. So I'm happy to be here.
I am happy to have you. I am very excited that you two are here so that we can explore the topic on policy and specifically resettlement of refugees in Kenya. So just a little bit of background. Why are we talking about resettlement of refugees in Kenya? I will go to the near history, and then perhaps you can help me go into the history. So let's talk about the establishment of the camps Kakuma and Dadaab, and then bring it a little bit home to where I will be right now. So as it stands, we have refugees living in Kenya. Kenya is a host nation. And the two biggest camps in Kenya are Kakuma and Dadaab. Now, the government declared that they would ensure the closure of camps. And so UNHCR and the government had talks, and they decided on 3 directives. They decided that camp closure would still continue, and it is now set for next year, 2022, I think in June. Yeah. And the government and UNHCR gave 3 directives, which you will help me phrase. But so the first one was integration of the refugees into the society, into the Kenyan society, number 1. Number 2, resettlement of refugees into a third country. And number 3, if refugees would want to go back home, just being able to channel that and enable refugees to go back home. So that is the current state. Yeah. So refugees are not sure if they're going back home, if they're going to integrate into the society, or this will be another case of 2006. So now that I have thrown hints like this, would you kindly give us the backdrop to this event, to 2006 to now 2021?
All right, thanks for that. So ideally, historically, the status of a refugee was supposed to be temporary. So in the beginning, we used to have people coming from Tanzania, Uganda, and coming to work in Kenya, and the same used to apply. Kenyans used to go to Uganda and Tanzania and work there, not because of any reasons of war, but just migration. Then at a certain period of time, the Horn of Africa started experiencing a lot of political turmoils, dictatorship, and amongst many other things. And so Kenya was one of the signatories to the 1951 Convention on Refugees. But I don't think they understood the magnitude of whatever convention at that point, because it was later, they ratified later. But so the idea of it was to host these people temporarily, and then they can be able to go back to their countries. So that's how the DAB started, because it started with the wars in Somalia, which have been ongoing for a period of time. And so when Kenya agreed to host them, they thought it was temporary. But as you know now, it's not, because the circumstances surrounding these particular countries have not changed. They slightly improve as people go, then they come back. So that was a picture. Unfortunately, whatever you picture sometimes does not pan out. So people coming into the country became very frequent. And so we had the DAB. The DAB had various sections, so it really grew. And the DAB was a host of mostly Sudanese and Somali refugees. Then now we have Kakuma, which hosts majority of Great Lakes, people from Ethiopia and Eritrea. And it's because of the circumstances surrounding our continent, and particularly now the Horn of Africa. So that is the history of how we ended up with the camps. And initially, we did not have a policy framework of any law that was particularly helping with the protection and management of refugees. But when we started seeing that the numbers, like when the government started seeing that the numbers are increasing and they are not going, they had to come up with a policy framework. So it's been a long journey of different types of policy frameworks. But as it stands now, we have the Refugee Act of 2006. And according to the Constitution, international law is adopted as our law for as long as it is not inconsistent with the Constitution. So then, by the virtue of that, and us having ratified the 1951 Convention, the OAU protocols means that law also applies to us
as well.
Yeah. So we operate an encampment policy, and that's why they are called camps, and that's why it's called Dadaab and Kakuma. That's how they got the structure of what they are today. And also now we have the new one. I can say new, it's like an extension of Kakuma. It's called the Kalu Bay Settlement, which is trying to establish a different way of helping refugees and offering protection for refugees in our country. So, but even with the 2006 Act, there have been challenges with that, over time, because you've had Genevieve has said she's been here for 25 years. So things change because the more a person stays in a country, the more they integrate socially with the people in the country. And so there have been various developments, and currently we're trying, there's the partners, UNHCR, civil society and government are trying to work through a new policy, which is it's called the Refugee Bill. It has gone through various stages, and now it was at the Senate the last time I checked. And so now we are waiting to see the outcome of that. Yes.
I will get back to you with so many questions.
Okay.
But for now,
yes.
Genevieve.
Yes.
So, what is your story? Because you were not in the camps, yeah? Mm-hmm. You're not from the camps. So then you are different. So and different is scary, but different is also nice.
Yeah.
So tell us your story. What is your story? How are you a refugee?
Mm-hmm. The story is long. I think if I talked about it in depth, we would take like the whole day, but I'll try to summarize it. So basically, we flee our country during the war, the genocide in Rwanda, during 94, 95, 96 there. So we left our country around 94, and then we went to the camp actually. So we stayed at Mugunga camp in Congo for a year, and that is where I was born actually, in Congo. So in 1996, that's when now we came to Kenya, and my mother, at the time my dad used to work in Kenya, so Kenya was our only option to like flee to, because my dad was well conversant with the place, so it was easier. So we came to Kenya, my siblings, my mom, and I, and we settled here. It was not easy at all. My mom used to have challenges, like we didn't have documentation at the time. The police used to come and harass us all the time. Like I remember my mom telling me most of my years, my younger years, we used to spend them in the police stations, because they used to arrest us most of the time, and then my dad would come pay money and we would come out. And it's not only for us, it's for many refugees who came at the time, because nobody had any kind of documentation. So after a while, I think that's when we started the process for applying for refugee status. And that also takes a while, because there's a whole process to it. They have to verify and all that. But finally, we got the documentations, and that's how we became refugees, urban refugees here in Kenya. Mm. Yeah.
What has the integration process, what was the integration process for you as a child? So what did that look like through your eyes, just integrating into the Kenyan society?
I think most of my younger years, I wouldn't quite remember how it was, but as I grew up and I came to understand that we were refugees. At first, I never really used to understand we were refugees, because that was like, how are we refugees? Like, I used to think I was born here actually, because now this is where I know, this is where I consider to be home. So I think for me it was easy, because I've grown from my younger age up to where I am right now. So language was easy for me, because the first language I learned was Kiswahili, English, and then The Rwandese language, I only came to learn of it like when I was in my 20s or something like that. Because now, you see, now the parents have to insist, you have to learn and all that. But it was smooth for me. But for my siblings, I would say it was a bit challenging because most of them had to, when it came now to schooling, they had to go back and level down because of the language barrier and all that. So it was tough for them. But for me, I think everything was okay. Yeah.
I resonate how you said you did not understand if that you are a refugee, given that you were born in Kenya. So it reminds me of something. So when this is in 2007 to 2008 post-election violence period. So I was in class, and then we were registering for our KCPE, and I had to write my name. And my name is quite long. I mean, your name is long. So I had to write Chenyenyozi in a box. So the boxes were 21. And my surname is Gahenda. So fitting Joy Chenyenyozi Gahenda was such a hassle.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, they fit right into those boxes, those 21 squares. But before then, I went to the deputy teacher and asked her that I do not use my name Chenyenyozi because it is too long. And I'll be honest, I really did not like it.
Yeah.
Because it was one long, everyone kept asking, "Iyo ni jina gani?"
Yeah.
What name is that, right? And then even I didn't know what name that was. So it othered me so much that I did not want to use it.
Yeah.
So when I came from the senior teacher's class office, I come back to class, and then so people are like, "Why did you go to the senior teacher's? What was happening?" So I say, it's just my name. My name is too long. Joy, Connie, what is your name? Because people just call you Joy.
Yeah.
Joy, what is your name? So I say, my name is Chenyenyozi. Then this girl at the back of the class, she turned and she said, "Wewe ni refugee."
Wow.
And it hit me like a blow. I was like, wait, what? I did not understand what that was. I had never, this was such a foreign concept. I had never thought of that. She said it with such vile. And remember, we're all children. We're all in class 8. Yeah, we're all children. And at that point, I really did not, whatever refugee was, yeah, I didn't know what that was. But I didn't want to be that. And then I did not have the guts to go home and ask my parents, am I a refugee? Because we do not do tribe in our house. Now, having said that bit, who is a refugee?
So a refugee is a person who has fled their country due to reasons of persecution, not prosecution. Persecution. Or they're afraid that they're going to lose their life or their life is threatened. And so they flee. And when they come to the country of asylum, they become an asylum seeker. And then once they go through the process of refugee status determination, which, as Genevieve has said, involves a lot of processes. They do interviews, they do background checks. It's a process that's done by the UNHCR, but now it's currently done by the Refugee Affairs Secretariat, because the responsibility of protection and management is the government's responsibility. So once you go through it's called RSD, then they confirm you, and then you are given the status of refugee. But once you're given a status of refugee, it does not mean that you lose your nationality or your citizenship. It just means it's supposed to be a temporary status to enable you manage your way through the country of asylum. So refugee status is not permanent. It is temporary. And so no one should make a refugee feel like refugee is a form of nationality. No, it's just a status that is supposed to be temporary until you're able to access the different durable solutions. So that's who a refugee is.
So so that I can go to Genevieve, and then you can talk to us about the documentation process. I am aware that you were a child at that point, but probably you have been told about the stories. So Charity, then Genevieve. Charity, what are the steps that an asylum seeker, because my understanding is first, if say I flee from this country and get into, say, Uganda, I become an asylum seeker first.
Yes.
And then I need to register and become a refugee, right?
Yes.
And even when I'm doing this, I am not stateless.
Yes.
I am just seeking refuge for a while.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so what are these steps so that you talk to us about the legal processes, and then Genevieve, you talk to us about the actual experience of these processes and the legal provisions that would, say, grant citizenship to a person, and Genevieve, you tell us about how that is actually actualized. All right.
Okay. So we'll start with the refugee status determination. So in our country, you're allowed to seek asylum. And as I had mentioned before, we have the 1951 convention that allows our country to host refugees. So the first thing is, if I've fled, or if you fled the country, your country, say Kenya, and then I go to Uganda, and I have to determine those things, that first, I'm fleeing because of the fear of persecution, that my life is in danger, and that I cannot go back to my country of origin because of those things. So those are the three things they look at, so that you're fearing persecution, your life is in danger, and you cannot really go back to your country of origin. So we call it a country of origin. So once you arrive in the country, so it can go two ways. You go to RAS, you're given 30 days. It's under the Refugee Act 2006, but it is extended to 90 days. That's how long, theoretically, according to the law, you're supposed to have your RSD process done. That is theory. In practice, you will come, then you will go to RAS, then they'll give you a document, they'll take your picture, they take your fingerprints, because they operate a database that has all refugees who are in our country, because you're fleeing from persecution, so your identity has to be protected. So it's just not put there for everyone. They're the ones they're the custodians, UNHCR and the government. So they take your fingerprints, they take a picture of you. If you have family, they take pictures of them, then they're given a number. So they're identified by a number called a case number. I think generically it starts with 823. Before, there used to be ND, like letters and then numbers. And so you're given a document that's called proof of registration. So you are now registered. And then thereafter, you'll get something called an asylum seeker pass that usually runs for 30 days. And you have to keep renewing it, because remember, we are supposed to be getting refugee status in how long?
90 days.
In 90 days. So you can't get an asylum seeker pass that is indefinite. It usually has like timelines. Yes. So once you get your asylum seeker pass, now you go through the motions of refugee status determination. So they interview you, they collect data, they do background checks. So they have all information, including the village where you're from. And I think there's a security check and things like that. Once you've checked out, then you're supposed to, then they actually even call you for an actual interview. Genevieve will explain that. And then they call the whole family. So if you're a family of 5, all of you are interviewed. And one thing to note is that for refugee status, even children are given their own identity number. They don't share it. I think before they used to share the number with the parents, but now the law provides that, or rather I'll say it's a policy or administrative work, because it's not specifically written in the law, they need a number, but the way it works, even a child is identified as an individual, so they get an identity number. And so thereafter, once you've qualified and you've done all that, you're given refugee status, and then you can apply for a refugee ID. It used to be called an alien card, but now it's called a refugee ID. It's a Kenyan ID, but it's only valid for 5 years.
Okay.
Yeah, so you have to keep renewing it. It's different even on face. It's blue, and ours is like a mixture of colors, brownish. It has a specific timeline, but it also has your case number.
Okay.
Yeah, you see ours has district, I don't know what. It has your case number and also area of residence. When you turn it, it will say where you live. So are you from Kakuma? Are you from Dadaab? Are you from Nairobi for urban refugees? Yes, so that is ideally the ideal process that is supposed to take 90 days.
Well,
yeah.
All that in 90 days.
Yeah, but now that is the theory. But practically, they keep renewing the time. So for as long as if you have a POR, you can get some assistance. But it's limited, the proof of registration. So we have RSD, refugee status determination, and then we have the proof of registration. But you see, you'll access services only on a limited scale. When you have the asylum seeker pass, you have limited scale. But you have refugee status determination, then you can access things like NHIF. You can apply for a KRA PIN. You can get a business license. You can apply for a work permit, theoretically. That's allowed. Yeah. Okay. Yes.
Genevieve, tell us about the practicality of this.
Yeah.
So, if I remember well, the process was a hectic one. It was really hectic because it's like you're given appointments. I think there are a couple of interviews that you have to do. There are interviews that you do as a family. There are others that you do individually, depending on the age. So the process was a bit, for us, I think it was easier. It's not like now. Now it's a bit complicated. For us, it was easier because the genocide was known. It was all over. So getting this refugee status, I think, required only a little steps or a few procedures for you to get it. But it was a continuous thing that took a long time before they can verify if your stories, if they coincide, if they go together. So I remember we used to go there on appointment basis, like you go today and then you're given another appointment for after a month or 2 months. And then in each appointment, I think you do different things. There are days for interviews, there are days for data collection. So I think for us it went very quickly because I can't remember how long it took, but we got the documents within a very short period. And then at the time, like Charity was saying, we were being given one number. Like now, the member of the family, the head of the family, has that. It's like you're given number. Yeah, it's like a case number, and then all of you are now
listed under
her. Yeah. So, but then afterwards, like now, when you attain the age of 18, now you're given your own number. Yeah, but before that, everybody else is under the
father
or the head of the
mother
household.
Or the head of the household.
Even if the household even that had children, like the
children are the heads.
Then it becomes a children-headed household.
Yeah.
Then they're given a number, and then.
But now I see my nieces and my nephews, they have like their own numbers, and they're very young. They're like 12, 11. They have their own numbers. And like us, who we were using one, I remember when I was registering for my KCPE, I went with my mom's mandate. At that time, we were being given mandates. Yeah, so it was like just a sheet of paper. Like it has all the details and all. And then now you're at the back of the paper, the photographs of the kids and all. And then now after some time, now they introduced the alien cards. Yeah. So we got the alien cards which expire after every 5 years. So you have to keep renewing. And then now they changed the name from the alien card to refugee identity card. So it has the name of the refugee identity card and government of Kenya or something like that. Yeah, but it also expires after 5 years.
So other than just changing that name, are there added benefits that come with this new card? It's just a name change.
I think the name change came with a lot of restrictions rather than because before, when we had the mandates, we would open bank accounts, we would open M-Pesas. But when we got the refugee identity cards, everything stopped.
Yeah, and
right now we cannot access M-Pesa. There are some whose M-Pesas are closed. Some others cannot even get SIM cards. We cannot open bank accounts with the aliens. Because now you see our numbers, I think the ID number, it has, I think, five numbers.
There's an issue with the numbers.
Yeah. Ours has 5 numbers, and the Kenyans, I think, has six. At 8? 8? Yeah. So it's 8. So you see now the banks had an issue with that and then there's also the issue that the IDs expire after every 5 years.
Yeah.
So when you go to the bank to withdraw money, say you want to go over the counter and your ID maybe is expired, and every time they renew the ID card, you get a new number.
Yeah.
Wow,
yeah.
Okay.
So that whole issue brought about a lot of restrictions, I think.
So, Charity, why is it this way?
So I can add on to what she has said previously, then I answer that question. When she said when they came into the country, the genocide was active. So there are also refugees, when they come to the country, their arrest is short because of that. For example, when there were wars in Congo that are still ongoing, there was a war in Sudan, they come in huge numbers. So you can't start telling them, oh, stop there. Now we are going to do investigation. No, most of them are just given refugee status because it's prima facie in law. It speaks for it. You can see that.
Sounds like Brenda Fassie.
Yeah, you can see it's they have merit to be here. Yeah. So one of the reasons that is, I wish you could have somebody from the National Registration Bureau to tell us why, but what remains the same is the case number. When they generate a different card, it comes out with a different number. So it's because it expires. It's like getting a voucher ID. It's like a voucher because it's temporary. You're supposed to be here for 5 years. So once you go, you don't have to keep following the same. That's how I think that's how it works. Unfortunately. And then the other restriction that came was we had security. There's a National Security Act. That's not the correct name, but there's an act on security that was supposed to help with money laundering and things like that. That now was adopted by banks and communication agencies, which include Safaricom, Airtel, and that are under CCK. So because of that, they also had to put restrictions in their systems. So when, for example, in Safaricom, when you input the ID number for a refugee, you see it's less numbers. So it drops it like it's a flag. It's like a red flag. Then now they don't even call you excuse me, you are blocking your line. It's like you one day you wake up, you are not.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then for the banks, the same thing, because of all these issues of money laundering and stuff like that. The government says it's a security issue. So the challenge is what organizations have been trying to push for is then give us the numbers that you require from us so that we are able to access these services. Number 2, just give us the same number. Once I'm renewing, maintain the number.
Like an ID.
Yeah. And so there have been those things for, will that mean you're a citizen? What does that mean? What is the difference between you and us because of the sovereignty of states and all the dynamics that come with that? Yeah, so that's why. And unfortunately, if you change your ID, then it's like everything else is changing. And, you can't keep doing that. It could change when you're not even here. Because one thing we need to note is that refugees are not also permanently in the country of asylum. They get passports. they get their conventional travel documents, which they can go with all over the world, apart from their country of origin.
Okay.
And the reason being, remember, the fact that you're a refugee means you cannot go back to your country. Yeah, so there's a disclaimer in the passport. It has a French name, but we call it a conventional travel document. Yeah, so that's it. So they look at it as a security issue. Yeah, but when you look at the dynamics of it, it's a bit...
It looks like a system that is cutting off people from accessing it. So that brings me to my next question. You remember the government directives on reintegration? I'll just use these words everywhere, and then please correct me.
Okay.
Okay. So reintegration into, say, integration into the Kenyan society, repatriation, and resettlement. So I would like us to first define these words and what they mean. And while we are there, so let's put this at this shelf for now, because I've just remembered. See, now Genevieve can register to be a Kenyan citizen, can she?
Yeah, she can.
Would you want that, and what would that mean for you?
Definitely, I would want that, because if you think about it now, before when I was younger, it was, I don't care, I can be refugee, I can be whatever, I don't care. But now, when I'm growing up, now it's when it's starting to sink in, what limits do I have, what opportunities are there out there for me? So at this point, if I were to get a citizenship to be Kenyan, I would gladly take it, because that would seem like the only opportunity I would get. Because you see, now, with these documents and with this refugee status, I cannot get some things. I cannot get permanent jobs here in Kenya. So I think getting the citizenship would really mean that at least I get to do the things I want to do, especially now after school. I want to be financially stable. I want to have a job. I want to have, So I think that would really help us a lot, especially us, speaking as a youth or a refugee youth. That would really make a difference. For our parents, I don't think they would. Yeah, they would be bothered. But for us and for our future, I think that would be a really good option.
So why haven't you registered for citizenship? I'm going back to my class 7, class 8
social studies
on how to be GHC
for some of us. Okay.
On social studies on how to be a Kenyan citizen. And I think there was by birth, by naturalization, there was by registration.
Yeah.
So why haven't you applied for? I think yours would be naturalization or registration. Actually, is it by
registration?
I am everywhere with it.
Okay, so should I? Okay, so I think it could be by registration. Before we used to use a lot of that naturalization, but then the terminology now was brought closer to now just the registration, and then there's permanent residency. Those are the 3 ways you can become a Kenyan citizen. And so she has the opportunity to do it theoretically, but you find a lot of bottlenecks as you're going through the process of registration, because for you to become a citizen by registration, you have to have lived in the country for 7 years continuously. You might be married to a Kenyan, because there's that, when you're married to a Kenyan, you can apply for citizenship via registration. And then the local dialect, she knows Kiswahili, she even knows Kikuyu, she knows languages. So she's ideally qualified. And then you should not have committed any criminal offense, and those are the standard ones. So she does have the opportunity to apply to become a Kenyan citizen. But the practical process of locally integrating refugees through the process of citizenship has not been realized. Let's use the politically correct term. Has not yet been realized, and the challenge is still with maybe the lack of understanding of who a refugee is by administrative persons, or just tumekatazi. Like, we are not interested. We want you to go back to your home. So yeah, theoretically she can apply. There are those who have applied, but they have not been successful. They don't get reasons why. The documents just stay wherever in the
incorrect.
Yes, like it's just so, that.
Genevieve, why haven't you registered to be a Kenyan citizen? I mean, we have heard about the bottlenecks, and where ndo kwa ground.
I think one of the reasons would be exactly what she has said. Like, the process is, there is no guarantee that you'll ever get the citizenship. And also, I think there is an aspect of being a refugee comes with a lot of advantages, I would say. Like now, going to school, we get scholarships from organizations. So life is a bit easy, but now it's not easy as such, because you also have to qualify for those scholarships. But there is that, and then now when you finish studying, that's when you realize, like, I was staying on this side because it was safe, and then now you're out there, and then there is nothing else. You see, so we just survive on the basis of weighing matters. So you see, this one works for me now, but then later it does not work for you.
It doesn't quite work.
Yeah, so I think if the option would work, if the option of citizenship would be a guarantee, I think many people would take go for it.
Okay, so what I had shelved here, let us take it back. So the 3 government directives: resettlement, reintegration, and repatriation. What do each of these words mean? What would be the implication of this? Is it even legal? Are all these stages legal? Would Kenya still be a host country? And Genevieve, how applicable are all this, and what is the best option of these 3?
So when I think about it, at that point they wanted to repatriate the Somali community back to Somalia, and that was the closure of Dadaab.
That is 2006?
Yes. And so that's when people went to court and were like, back to spearheading the whole thing and saying, no, we cannot close the camp. It's against all human rights principles of protection and management of refugees. But we ideally just like using protection, because management sounds very not human rights. Yeah, and so then it was found to be unconstitutional, and so the Dadaab was not closed. So and then we have those options you've given. So the 3, they're called durable solutions. Durable meaning they will last long, and so the 3 durable solutions are voluntary repatriation, which in the refugee space you'll hear people say it's called volrep. And then, so note the word, it is voluntary. It is not just repatriate them. It is voluntary. And then there is local integration, and then there's resettlement. So local integration ideally would be applying for citizenship and having the guarantee to become a Kenyan citizen. And then resettlement is now getting an opportunity in a third country. And we'll go, I think, into details about that. But that means now you can go to the States, you can go to Canada, you can go to the UK, you can go to Australia to be resettled there. So it's like a settlement of a different place. Yeah, and mostly you'll find it's in developed countries. African countries have not opened up such opportunities for each other. So you'll find most of it is the programs are in the developed countries. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how do these options look for ground?
For now, I think none of them gives me any kind of comfort, because it's like each one of them has like a block to it. For instance, for the local integration, we've talked about it already. There's that issue of citizenship and how complicated it can get for us. And then there is the issue of voluntary repatriation. That sounded like an option for me personally, because for me, I never experienced whatever happened at home. So why not go back? But now there is the issue of family members. My family, my mom, my sister, all experienced the genocide. So I think it has been a challenge for me because my family feels like they're not willing to go back to that. And especially my mom feels like if we go back, what are we going for? Because you find that most of the family members maybe are not even there. Most of them died. Not necessarily during the genocide, but over the years.
Time,
So she's a bit reluctant because maybe of the traumatic stress that comes with it. Because you see that when they came here, there was not like counseling services or things like that. People just dealt with their issues on their own. And then she was saying, she was trying to explain to us, like try to understand the situation I was in. And it was tough for her because immediately we came to Kenya, my father passed on. And he was like the main, he was the one who was taking care of the family. He knew Kenya well, he knew the language. So it was easier for mom and the rest of us. But when he died, it became a bit challenging because she had to really refocus and she had to like forget everything that happened, put it aside and focus on how she was going to raise us, So for her, she feels like that bringing up that conversation of going back is insulting because we are not thinking about her and everything she has had to go through to bring us to this point. You see, for her as a single mother, it was hard because bringing up 3 girls, we are 3 girls in the family, 2 right now, 1 passed on a few years ago. So it was even challenging because now she has to focus on us. There are things that comes with raising girls and all, but she has brought us this far. So we have to be considerate of her feelings as well. So that for me now becomes another block. So I cannot go back to home because I want to also be understanding. And then now there is the issue of resettlement. That sounds like a hallelujah for
it's a dream.
Because it's a dream. Like everybody wants to go back to go to another country where you feel like you're going to get a citizenship. Like that's like a big thing, So but then that also has there are steps to it. There are procedures, there are requirements, and then you find that some of these requirements you do not fit in any of them. So mostly you find that they take cases of women and girls who are at risk, if you're facing any danger in your country, or even if you want to be reunited with your family. And I'm in neither of those categories. So then it becomes a challenge because then how now will I get the resettlement that everyone
is talking about? Everyone wants.
Everyone wants actually. So the 3 durable solutions for me are a bit uncertain for now. I don't know what the future holds, but I hope maybe as we go on, better things will come. Yeah.
So talk to me about Kenya's resettlement policy. That in particular, I mean, Genevieve has brought it in, so it's so much easy to just get in sync with it.
And thank you so much for sharing. I'm not the host, but
no,
when you hear the story from a person going through it, it gives you a feel of it's not just work. It's somebody's life. And so thank you. And so when I talk about the resettlement policy, it does not come from the government. The resettlement is done by UNHCR. The process is done by UNHCR, because what happens is the third countries open up things that are called quotas. Okay. And so because they have different programs and projects in their countries where they accept migrants generally. And migrants are various. Even if I was to go to the state, I'm not going to be an American. I'll still be a Kenyan. I'll have to go through a whole process to be identified as whichever category of migrant I am. So they open quotas for refugees to come to their countries. And so these quotas are dependent on the country of resettlement, the third country. So they can say we want 100 people from, like right now we know Syria and Yemen are a crisis situation. And you see, we are not only refugees in Africa. We are refugees in the Middle East. We are refugees all over the world. And so all of these people want resettlement. Yeah. And so other countries look at priority, others. So a resettlement is a global. We have to look at it globally, and you cannot look at it as a local solution in Kenya or in East Africa or in Africa. So they open up and say we want people from Syria, we want several people from Africa. Then the numbers are distributed, and then you're told what to do with the numbers. Then UNHCR picks. They have a way of doing it that is not necessarily disclosed to the public. But then there's also the categories of women, people who are really vulnerable and that have high risk, people who are sick and they cannot get treatment here. Yeah. They have to travel to another country, and then family reunification. So you see, all these people around the world are supposed to fit into those quotas. And so you find sometimes Kenya is given like 50. And we have 400 plus thousand refugees. And we don't only have them in the urban area, we also have them in the camp. Yeah. So that's the reason why resettlement is like it's a beautiful dream, but has it can come with a lot of pain. They even do resettlement counseling in case you get a reject.
So it's like you can get a reject, like
yes.
You apply, you can get a
You don't apply, you're identified, then you're told to go, depending on the country you're going to, there are different procedures. So if you're going to Australia, there's a different dynamics of things. If you're going to the States, like that. And then you go through the process, and then you can get a reject. And most of those countries write reasons why. So a country like the US would give you reasons, and they give you it's like an appeal period of, I think, 30 days, if I'm not wrong. There's an appeal period, at least for the states. I don't know about Canada, Australia, and the others, but I know in the United States you can appeal that decision because they give you the reasons why, and they give you a period of time to do the reapplication. Then if that doesn't work, you get the reject, and now you cannot be qualified for resettlement until something else comes up, like you are reunified or something else. So that's what happens.
It has to be very
and
heavy.
So now, and then UNHCR has that now for resettlement counseling. I think they speak to the people who are going through resettlement and those who maybe have received rejects and stuff like that. So it's a global thing that's not done by a country. You do it. It's a whole force of different agencies, both governments and the civil society, UNHCR in specific. And we have even RSC, because IOM are the ones who resettle majority of the people.
What is IOM?
It's called International Organization of Migrants, I think.
Okay.
Something like that. Yes, it is. It is that. Yes. So they are the ones who.
Of migrants.
No, the M means something else.
Okay.
But it's called IOM.
Okay.
So they run the biggest resettlement operation. Let's go it because it's an operation. Yeah. Yes. So that's what happens.
So basically, Kenya cannot decide, okay, we are going to resettle you.
No.
That is beyond.
It's beyond
our scope.
Beyond our scope, yes.
So, what can we hope for? I mean, we have discussed. You have shared your expertise. You have shared your life with us, and thank you so much for that. I mean, she said it, but I'm saying it again. Thank you so much. You're helping to just help us make sense of everything that is going on. So, what does it look like? I mean, we have discussed the bleak. Is there any ray of sunshine about to come through at any point between now and 2022? What would be the probable hope? Yeah, and so that we can have a better conversation and say maybe Kenya has an open policy. I think you had mentioned that the type of policy we have, which is encampment policy.
Yeah.
Encampment policy. So maybe when we can have a conversation and say Kenya has an open policy, and how does that look like? And so what is it that we are hoping for as a legal framework, as a policy framework, and like the actualization of it? What is it that we're looking forward to?
I think one ray of hope we can look forward to would be when the refugee bill is assented to. It will open up opportunities for them accessing services, even carry the work permit thing will be somewhat sorted. That is on a local level. I think it would be an entry point, in all honesty. Then we can start having conversations about local integration, because it's going to be inevitable. We cannot close are we going to take these people? It's a human rights violation. We could be sued as a country by other.
But who would sue us?
Like you see, we have the East African Court of Justice, something like that. So a country within the East Africa can decide that Kenya is doing the wrong thing. Yeah. It could be detrimental to us, in all honesty, when you think about it. But then, I mean, I'm not here to speak for the government. But being a Kenyan, I think, and even knowing the legal framework, I think if you were to have the refugee bill assented to, that would be fantastic. It would be really good. It would be a start. And then we start having conversations on local integration. Okay. Because they're our people. They work with us. They work for us. They are contributing to the economy. Yeah. And why not formalize the contribution and gain from it? I don't see any reason why. Because they are still occupying our spaces. They are paying rent. They are taking their children to school. They are marrying our people. We are marrying them. I mean, well, they marry us. However it goes. So I think those two are what... Yeah,
that is
that's it. At least for me, I feel like that would be the best.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I'll just agree with her. Like, if we were able to be locally integrated properly, not even in terms of getting the citizenship, if the refugee bill can be passed and we are able to access work permits, we are able to access KRA pins, we are able to just work like normal Kenyans, I think that would be a great help to us, instead of just thinking of, I want to go back home, or I want to go to a third country. Like, Kenya has been so nice to us. I think for me personally, I think the people here are nice. The people I've never experienced any.
Is it because you're on a Kenyan podcast?
No. Like, honestly, I don't think we have had issues. I know there are people who have issues with Kenya and the Kenyans, but personally, I have never had a problem with them. So if I'm able to work and earn money and be stable, like, why not just settle here and probably get married by a Kenyan?
By a Kenyan?
Yes.
Well, it is out there.
She's single.
She's single? Are you single? Before we continue telling you. My final question, and then maybe you can put in your closing remarks, and then we tie this. Is this even a question we should be asking? But how can the Kenyan society prepare itself for integration of I will say of the minorities? How can the Kenyan society do that? Yeah.
I think for me in brief would be just a change of mindset. I think even as Kenyans need to just change our mindset, or like as an overhaul, to look at each other as human beings. That this is my brother, this is my sister, this can be me. And when we have these conversations and try and make Kenya understand that there's nothing so alien about being a refugee, then I think that will be the first step. So having these conversations is a start of preparation. Having conversations in the community is a way that they can prepare, and having the conversations, not only refugees doing their own things and Kenyans doing their own things, but together. Because ideally, the method that has been used for a long time is refugees have their own programs, Kenyans have their own programs. But in preparation for integration, I think we should have programs that are together. Mix them, gather them. Yeah. And I think that would make it easier for them to, for us all, no, not calling them, but for us all to be able to accept and recognize the importance of local integration. Yeah.
Thank you. Are those your closing remarks as well?
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So for me, I think, and that has come out from Charity's comments, and I think if the Kenyans were to be aware of, there's this thing about Kenyans and refugees that they are two different groups.
Yeah.
So you find that even when you tell a Kenyan you're a refugee, some people don't even know what that means. But over the years, I've seen a change, because now there are organizations that are coming to the communities, and they bring the Kenyans and the refugees together, and they talk about our issues when they're there. So, like, at least there has been a change, because now people understand these are refugees, this is what they go through. So if there was more of that, and if they can channel it even in the social media platforms like the TVs, the radios, I think that would be that would help enhance pass the information. Because you find that these people don't want to mix with us. Some even feel jealous of us. They think, because there is this line that the Kenyans used to use on us mostly when we were growing up. They used to say, oh, nyinyi ni wa UNHCR, mnalipiwa nyumba na UNHCR, mnalipiwa shule, mnapatiwa sijui nini. So it was very sad, because these things are not true. You have to really work to get to where you are, just like them. So if there were conversations about refugees and what they go through on every channel that we get, every opportunity that we get, I think that would really help us. And also, if I'm able to work here in Kenya, like, I think that would really help eradicate that notion that people don't even know a refugee, because I'm there, I'm working with you guys. Yeah, because before that, I remember we used to get employment. I was employed at some point when I was during my long holidays. I used to get employments kidogo kidogo. So I used to work with people, and then they ask you questions and you answer them, and then you find they understand, you see. So if we are able to work with the Kenyans and we are able to make, they can see we also work to get to where we want. Yeah. So that would really help us a lot. Yeah.
Thank you. Any closing remarks?
Closing remarks, I would just want to thank everybody, the Kenyans, the refugees who are just pushing it. There are refugees who are doing so many great things, and they help also change our name out there. So I want to appreciate them a lot. They are the ones that inspire us. They inspire the young generations to know that no matter your status, it doesn't matter. It doesn't even matter. There's someone who said, why do we even use the word refugee?
Yeah.
what is the essence of that name. So if everybody will just strive to be human and to understand, like, put yourself in our shoes. If you are in our shoes, what would you do? Yeah, so I think the world would be a better place.
If we all tried their shoes.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. Try my shoes.
Try my shoes.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing, both of you. This has been very insightful, and it leads us into the conversations that we're going to have in the course of this series of podcast, because we're going to discuss things like myths and misconceptions that people have towards refugees. We're going to discuss. We have so much planned out. I mean, we're going to discuss the legalities of it all. We are aiming to be part of the integration process, such that now people won't say when the statistics are, I think 500 and something thousand refugees are, and with I think 400 and something thousand in the camps, and it won't just be numbers passing, and it won't just be information coming and going. We'll be able to put faces, and we'll be able to humanize the situation, which is really the aim of this podcast. If that is done, I feel like we will have achieved so much. So in the course of this series, we will explore how to have these conversations further, how to make Kenyans aware. And we will get even into harder things like what are Kenyans afraid of. So why, for instance, as a child, why was refugee used, and I felt like it was an insult, and I didn't understand the usage of that word, and I'm sure that child did not even understand what they were saying. So just going to the roots, digging up the human story. That is why we are here, and thank you for being part of our journey.
Thank you.
Thank you for being part of the second episode. So thank you so very much for being a part of our conversation, and let us continue this. Head over to our social site pages, Refugee Poet and Anika. Let us have a conversation, throw us your questions, let us engage. And I would like to challenge us so that we continue to remember to create a world where homes are not defined by origins. Thank you so much, and have an amazing day.
The online dialogue series of Refugee Poet was commissioned by the Special Initiative on Displacement SIF, program of the Civil Peace Service of GIZ. We appreciate the discussions and insights shared. The opinions expressed in these dialogue series are those of the speakers. They do not necessarily reflect the opinions or views of GIZ.